From downtown Detroit, Local 4 News at 5 starts now.
A takedown on I-75. Heart-stopping moments as Detroit police arrest a man who led them on a wild chase. You will hear from the owner of that minivan.
Florida locked in a race against the clock.
We are running out of time. The storm is almost here. If you are in an evacuation zone, you need to go now.
With Irma fast approaching, highways are packed as the state braces for this historic storm. And the message doesn't get much clearer than that. People in Irma's path need to get out, and they need to do it now.
Take a look at live pictures. This is Key West that you see on the left side of your screen. A normally crowded plaza on a Friday afternoon, pretty much empty. We've got a lot to bring you. We'll start things off with Ben, who's tracking the storm. And Ben, we just got new data in a few moments ago.
Yeah, not good, but also not surprising either. Hurricane Irma is still a Category 4, winds still at 155 miles per hour. That's not necessarily the change, but as you go forward in the forecast path, the only thing that we can hope for here is that this storm really sort of interacts a little bit more with some of the landmass here in Cuba and sort of chews away at that storm, because if it doesn't, the National Hurricane Center now saying that Irma will be a Category 5 storm when it barrels into the Florida Keys sometime early Sunday morning. This is the 2 a.m. position. This is likely going to roll over the Keys probably around daybreak. Again, as a Category 5 storm with 160-mile-an-hour winds. Your heart just sinks when you look at that. It's going to continue to the north during the daylight hours. So now places like Naples, Marco Island, just south of Fort Myers, all in play for the core of this storm, as this has been shifting steadily west over the last several days. And of course, it's just going to chew up the entire Florida peninsula until it becomes a tropical storm on Monday afternoon. So folks really getting going, moving their preparations to completion in South Florida. NBC's Jay Gray is in Miami with the latest from there. Jay?
Good evening. A massive Category 4 hurricane with sustained winds of 150 miles an hour. Irma continues to target not only Miami, but the entire state. It is moving day in Miami and across Florida.
Today is the day to do the right thing for your family and get inland to safety.
Millions are in the path of Irma, a storm so massive it could literally swallow the entire state.
This storm is wider than our entire state and is expected to cause major and life-threatening impacts from coast to coast.
So from coast to coast, residents are preparing as best they can. Lines stretch around home improvement stores, which are quickly running short of supplies. The same is true at gas stations and grocery stores across the state, as residents board up and load up what they can in a scramble to get to safety. Lines gathered outside of this shelter before it even opened. While for those already inside other facilities, there's a growing fear.
What's the most scary is, what are we going to go back to?
It's a valid concern when you see the fury already unleashed by Irma in the islands. Devastation that fuels a sense of urgency for so many now in the storm's path.
You got to be ready. Price you pay for living in Florida.
But the time to prepare is quickly running out, with Irma closing in on the coast. On its current path, Irma is expected to batter the Keys tomorrow night and make landfall just west of Miami Sunday morning. Jay Gray, NBC News, Miami.
Hey, well, the calls have been clear. Folks in Irma's path need to evacuate now before it's too late.
But that's part of the problem, too. Getting out, no easy feat. This is I-75 in Orlando, so well north of Miami, and it's bumper-to-bumper traffic, and this is how it looks for hundreds of miles. Throw into that fuel shortage and trying to get gas as you sit in all this traffic. Sean Lay caught up with a family from Tampa who did just complete that marathon drive to Michigan. Sean?
They just did, pulling in not long ago, Devin. Here's the deal. The mom is from Southfield with her two boys, now living in Tampa. She had to make a critical call this week to avoid that very traffic you were just showing right here. So she asked her friends back here at home, should she stay? Should she go? She is glad she asked that question.
Finding safety from a superstorm 1,200 miles away inside the shop salon on 9 Mile and Warren. Sinceria Baldwin.
But traffic wasn't even moving.
A mom from Southfield with two sons, 17-year-old Easton, 15-year-old Edric, getting haircuts to freshen up after a marathon 18-hour drive from their new home in Tampa back to Metro Detroit.
I'm very tired. I'm very tired.
The three moved from Southfield to Tampa only 3 years ago, and now they're faced with Irma.
I get there. Here's the biggest historic storm in all times.
48 hours ago, she asked her friends this.
I went on Facebook and I said, hey, should I leave? Should I stay? Should I go? The storm shifted. I just got in town. Come on.
Her cousin Latoya in Southfield replied,
get out. like, get out now. Run for your life. Look, I cleaned out the basement and might have more family coming. Friends, family. I put the call out on my page like, hey, if you need a place to stay, come get out.
Latoya Burton now taking in the three here.
I feel safe. I'm at home. I'm happy about that, and I'm happy about the love that I receive from family and friends.
Not knowing what Irma will bring there. Back here live, take a look at your screen. We showed this image earlier this week. Sunsaria down in Tampa, she saw it too. Irma, an image of Irma plastered right over the state of Michigan. That actually really did it for her. She said, look, there's no escaping this. Even in the Tampa area, there's going to be some kind of effect that we're going to feel. She told her two sons, get in the car. We are hitting the road. She's glad she did it about 12 hours earlier. Devin, she could be stuck in that traffic right now had she not made that call.
No doubt about it, Sean. I'm curious, what was it that took Sunsaria to Tampa? What does she do there?
It's interesting. She's a motivational speaker. Her advice right now, prepare and stay calm.
She's going to have maybe more to talk about after all is said and done on this, that's for sure. All right, Sean, our coverage of Irma continues here on air and also online at clickondetroit.com. In fact, on our website, we are carrying the live stream from our sister station in Miami. There you're seeing it from WPLG. They're in continuous coverage, as you'd well imagine, as Irma heads toward Florida. Irma has, as Ben mentioned, if it comes to land as a Category 5, the potential of causing historic destruction. We've already seen what's happened with Harvey. And to help, Local 4, Click on Detroit, Art Van Furniture, and the American Red Cross all joining forces.
Yeah, we're hosting the telethon Help for Hurricane Relief Tuesday, September 12th from 6 a.m. until 8 p.m. Money collected will be donated to the American Red Cross Relief for efforts for hurricane devastation in Texas as well as in Florida.
And this is money that will provide shelter, food, emotional support, which is going to become more and more important, all kinds of assistance to those affected by these disasters. Tune in to Local 4 all day Tuesday of next week for the Help for Hurricane Relief telethon. All right, now to a chase through the streets of Detroit, which comes to a heart-stopping conclusion in the middle of I-75. That's the driver rushing into oncoming traffic, and police end up taking him down on the top of a van.
Coco McAvoy is following this story for us tonight. Coco, you actually spoke to the driver who was in that van.
Yes, Kimberly and Devin, and the man is shaken up, as you can imagine, after something like this. He's a technician for a company. He was headed to a job in Detroit when all of this happened. Now, we know this chase started after a young woman was shot in the head in southwest Detroit. You're looking at now the spot where the chase ended on I-75, and this is also the spot that minivan driver got caught in the middle of this chase.
I really thought there was going to be a shooting or something.
The driver of the minivan didn't want to be identified, but described the moment the suspect came running towards him.
I saw a guy jump from one side of the road to the other side. And at that point, I really didn't know what to do anymore. I was so scared.
The video shows an officer also jump on top of the van to arrest the suspect.
At one point, I heard a party on top of the roof of the car.
The chase ended on I-75, but this all started after a shooting in southwest Detroit a couple of days ago.
Our homicide detectives were able to identify who the suspect was in that incident.
Officers first tried arresting the suspect this morning, but he got away, and officers caught up with him again this afternoon for a 45-minute chase.
Through most of the west side of Detroit and downtown, and ultimately ended in southwest Detroit with him being taken into custody.
As an audience watched.
It just turned nuts because you have no idea what to do in those kind of situations.
Now the suspect will be facing charges, and the driver of the minivan says he's grateful no one was injured after an intense police chase.
It's been like something that I see on the movie or on the news, but I never really experienced nothing like that.
And police aren't releasing much information at this time about the shooting. They're also not giving the name of the suspect until he's been officially charged. But obviously a lot of action this afternoon, and very good news that no one was injured in this. Back to you.
Okay, and Coco, you mentioned that this all started after a young woman was shot. Do we know how she's doing tonight?
So police tell us that she's in grave and very critical condition, and that's why they've had homicide investigators working this case. However, she is still in the hospital, and she's in grave condition at this time.
Okay, Coco, keep us posted. We appreciate it. And if you want to watch the chase again, we've posted the full uncut video of it on our website. Click on Detroit.com. The link is right in the top stories section.
So no Friday slowdown. We're just getting started here at 5.
Ahead in the next hour, a fire in Warren overnight leaves one man injured, and police say they know it wasn't an accident. Also, a small problem causes chaos at the state capitol in Lansing, and it has nothing to do with politics.
And they say justice isn't being served. New tonight, a rally today demanding criminal charges against a state police trooper. What Wayne County Prosecutor Kim Worthy is saying about it just ahead. Hank?
Devin, Kimberly, a major security breach affecting 143 million people across the country, thousands here in Metro Detroit. How to protect yourself right after the break.
New at 6.
4 days into the new school year, and already some parents have a huge problem with what one local district is doing.
But I know they knew about this the first day of school.
We'll tell you why their kids are being told they have to leave the school.
Okay, Jason, plus detecting cancer with a pen. The new technology that helps doctors identify cancerous tissue in a fraction of the time.
Now to the massive data breach that's affecting half of the country. Hackers getting personal information from Equifax.
Now we're learning more about what was stolen and what you should be doing right now to protect your information. Consumer investigator Hank Winchester has been following this story and joins us live with more. And Hank, this breach is huge.
Yeah, I mean, just the numbers, 143 million people at least. Now, we do have more information, and it's been coming up all day, being updated on the Equifax website. In fact, if you click right here, you'll get a message from the CEO about what happened, and also information about what the company's doing to try to fix this mess. The Equifax breach, one of the largest in U.S. history. 143 million people in the U.S. affected right now. The thieves getting names, social security numbers, birth dates, addresses, and more.
143 million have been affected by this hack. That's half of the country. That's half of the consumers in the U.S. So how do we make sure that everybody is safe?
I, like many of you, logged onto the Equifax website this morning and got the confirmation that my information had also been compromised. Equifax now offering credit monitoring to those impacted, but you can't just rely on that.
It's going to take a lot of homework, a lot of heavy lifting, and a lot of making sure you know exactly where you're at.
This hack concerning for many reasons. First, Equifax is in the business of working to protect that personal information. Second, who's getting hacked next? Concern now about security at TransUnion and Experian. And if you haven't signed up for credit monitoring, consider this option. The Michigan Attorney General website walks you through a process where you can put a freeze on your accounts. It is one of the things you can do to keep your information safe. We're going to put more information about this latest hack on the Help Me Hank page at clickondetroit.com. We'll also put a link to the Michigan Attorney General site. Again, you can go with a company like LifeLock. You can use some of the credit bureaus to help protect your identity, but you can do it yourself basically for free. You just have to make sure that you contact the credit bureaus to let them know you want that freeze. We're live here in the newsroom. Hank Winchester, back to you.
And Hank, as you mentioned, Equifax is offering free credit monitoring for a year to those people affected, but there is a catch to that, right?
There is. In fact, a few things. Number one, they're going to keep an eye on your credit, but they're not going to help you fix any problems. Also, after that year, you could expect to start getting some charges for that procedure moving forward. So you're going to have to write down when you start that process. You don't want to pick up those fees a year from now.
Yeah.
Kimberly,
what
back
a pain.
to you.
Okay, Hank, we appreciate it.
All right, Ben's back now, and as he mentioned earlier, we just got the 5 p.m. update on Irma, and it is a little gut-wrenching because just as we started to see some of the winds dial back, we see that it's going to strengthen again before it hits Florida.
And we've been talking about this for so long, it just almost seemed inevitable that, well, this forecast can't possibly materialize.
Yeah.
Right.
Kind of what we said about Harvey. When you see these numbers, you're thinking it can't happen, but it looks like it's going to.
Sure is.
And as we look at Irma, a lot of us are sick of seeing this because we have just been watching this for days and knowing what is to come for the southern part of the United States. There's the eye wall right now of Irma, and we're starting to see some fluctuation there. That's what we call an eye wall replacement. That's an internal process that the storm goes through. It's very difficult for modelers and scientists to figure out exactly when and how intense those cycles are going to be, but that's really about the only changes that Irma is going to go through as we get through the next 48 hours plus. This is the satellite image on top of the water temperature, because below it, this purple area, these water temperatures are incredibly warm, 80-degree numbers, close to 90 degrees. Some of this water temperature is. That is incredible octane for the storm as it moves towards Florida, and there's not a whole lot of wind shear to tear it apart either. If you've ever lived down south, you've probably heard the phrase, hide from wind, run from water. That's why they're evacuating down there, because of the storm surge. So we thought we'd try to explain exactly what we're talking about. When you look at a house or structure that's actually near the coast, here's your normal sea level, and then what the storm does is it provides a surge. If you've ever been in a swimming pool and you've taken your arm and sort of slung water around, that's kind of what this hurricane is doing. So there is going to be a level above the normal sea level that the wind is going to push that water onto shore. 3 feet, some areas, depending on how high of elevation you're at, could probably handle it. But you start getting into these storm surges that are 6 feet, that are going into structures 6 to 12, that could possibly go into second stories of some of the structures down there. And that is what a lot of these emergency officials are worried about, and why these evacuations have been so intense. In fact, the National Hurricane Center puts out this storm surge forecast, and you can see all these areas in red. 9 feet plus of storm surge flooding across the southern tip of Florida. And even though Miami may escape the actual eye wall and the brunt of the storm, there is still going to be significant storm surge here between Homestead and Palmetto Bay. You can see a lot of area there where we'll see that storm surge, but it looks like some of the worst may be over by Naples, Marco Island, and stretching up towards Fort Myers, up towards Sanibel. Even though it starts to slack off a little bit, there's still going to be incredible damage here along the Gulf Coast. Back home, don't have a lot to worry about. Just a couple sprinkles, mainly here on the east side. Those will fade as we get into tonight. Temperature's going to remain cool. We're at 67 right now, and we're going down to the 40s for overnight lows. Skies becoming clear overnight, and we will stay with a lot of sunshine as we get through the upcoming weekend. 67's as good as we're going to get tomorrow. Good football weather for the weekend for the Wolverines, the Spartans, and the Lions. High temperatures up to 70 on Sunday, and we'll finally get to the mid-70s early next week. But of course, thoughts and prayers with everybody.
Absolutely. In the middle of our really nice stretch there. Yeah. All right, Ben.
Well,
seasonal allergies are high, and there's a serious illness on the rise. I'm Dr. Frank McGeorge. See what's going around and what you can do right now to reduce your risk.
But first, another natural disaster causing chaos and destruction. A massive earthquake hits Mexico. Next. At least 32 people are now confirmed dead, and communities are left devastated after a historic earthquake shook southern Mexico.
it is said to be one of the strongest earthquakes that has hit the country in a century. The magnitude was 8.2. It was felt this morning throughout 11 states. In Mexico City, millions are left without power and many without homes.
According to the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center, tremor triggers tsunami waves. In the Pacific coast was confirmed waves taller than 10 feet.
Seismologists say the region should expect and prepare for a replica magnitude 7.2 quake within the next 24 hours.
This has hit Oaxaca and Chiapas, which are two of the poorest areas of Mexico. It's going to be devastating.
All right, we're following stories from across Michigan tonight.
Well, let's start with a scare at the state capitol. That's where the Capitol building was evacuated this morning after, we're told, an electrical spark caused an apparent fire on the first floor. Building was evacuated around 9 a.m. One person was seen being brought out on a stretcher after suffering smoke inhalation, but no other injuries reported. Police escorted staff back in at about 9:45 to gather supplies that had been left behind. But what started the fire exactly? What started that spark is still under investigation.
A Flint man has pleaded guilty to stealing as much as $500,000 from Shriners. Nicholas Singelis pleaded guilty to one count of conspiracy to commit an offense against the U.S. The charge carries up to 5 years in prison, a $250,000 fine, and 3 years of supervised release. The agreement says he took temple funds and fraudulently claimed they were using them. In all, he is ordered to pay nearly $1.8 million.
New at 5:30.
The overnight quiet shattered here in this neighborhood in Metro Detroit.
I was scared. I thought it was going to explode.
The police are calling this a firebombing. We'll have the tape.
America's military hardware fleeing Irma's fury. Navy aircraft seeking refuge at Selfridge. Coming up on Local 4.
A group rallied outside of the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office today calling for justice.
We want to know exactly what happened, right? And we want the appropriate criminal charges to be filed.
We'll tell you what sparked this demonstration and how the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office is responding.
Wheels. Rallying for charges, a demonstration today demanding a Michigan State police trooper face criminal charges in the ATV death of a Detroit teen. Right now, 2 separate investigations underway into the death of 15-year-old Damon Grimes.
Grimes was killed August 26th as he was being chased by state police while he was on an ATV. Now, so far, this incident has led to sweeping changes in state police policy. But as of yet, no charges in the case. Coco McAvoy was at today's rally and joins us now. And the prosecutor, Kim Worthy, issued a statement about it. Coco.
Yes, Devin and Karen, and Prosecutor Kim Worthy is saying that it's important the public understands the process. She says their office cannot do anything until those investigations are complete and she receives a warrant. And then she says at that time, the prosecutor's office will conduct their own investigation to determine what charges the officers could face if they do face charges. But the group out rallying today says they're tired of waiting.
No justice! No
peace! The group gathered outside of the courthouse.
Justice for Grimes!
Calling for justice and charges against the officers involved in the death of 15-year-old Damon Grimes. Grimes was killed in an ATV crash after being tased during a chase with Michigan State Police.
The facts are there. They had cameras on their dash. Michigan State Police, you're either right or you're wrong.
Reverend W.J. Rideout and Pastor David Bullock went inside of the building during the rally to speak to someone from the prosecutor's office.
We met with Investigative Chief Bevins, and he took down all our questions.
So it was a fruitful conversation. Obviously, he can report out to Kim Worthy as well.
Commander Alvin Barron says the Detroit Police Department is doing everything they can to conduct a thorough investigation.
You can't rush. Many witnesses have to be interviewed. The evidence has to be collected, and then a finding will be presented to the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office.
No peace!
But the group says they're not backing down and plan to continue to hold demonstrations until charges are announced.
Justice for Grimes!
We want to know exactly what happened, right? And we want the appropriate criminal charges to be filed, and we want the family to be made whole.
And the group says they are planning to hold more demonstrations next week. Back to you.
Well, Coco, when he says the appropriate criminal charges to be filed, what does he mean?
So, Devin, what he's saying is that he wants one of the officers to face first-degree murder charges. He says that the family will never get over this, but he says money is not going to fix that. He says the family really wants someone to be charged in this.
All right, Coco. Karen.
Now to brand new information we're learning into a firebombing overnight in Warren that left 1 man injured. Our Rod Maloney talked to neighbors who woke up to that strange sound.
This mess is all that is left of this house here on Wexford in Warren. And while Warren police have done an investigation so far, they could still use some help in trying to figure out who it was that came down this dirt road and hurled a Molotov cocktail through the front window.
I heard a big loud pop. I figured, oh God, did the furnace blow up?
Neighbor Kathy Finelli said the initial explosion shook the neighborhood and everyone out of bed.
We started hearing all this loud noise and my daughter's like, Mom, did you hear that? The house across the street's on fire, and we all ran to the window and it was just flames everywhere.
This was the scene overnight. Most notable about the blaze, how quickly it spread. Another eyewitness who did not want to be identified described how the fast-moving fire was downright frightening.
It started to move. It was coming out of the house. The bushes, you could hear the crackling, you could hear the glass breaking.
Those who saw the fire could not believe it when they heard that Warren police were investigating the possibility of a firebombing.
You know, I have no idea. I had never seen anything going on the street, violence or anything. It's always been quiet. So, yeah, I was shocked.
The fire department called for a restoration crew that boarded up the windows. Clearly, the home is all but a total loss. The unidentified man who lives in this house, we're told, is going to survive, although clearly he's going to need much more medical treatment. In the meantime, Warren police would like any information they can get. If you know anything, please call. In Warren, Rod Maloney, Local 4.
Right, Rod, and police say the man inside the house woke up because of that strong smell of gas in the house, but by that time, the fire was already raging.
All right, over here in the Weather Pod with Ben, the worst natural disaster that I've ever covered was Hurricane Andrew in South Florida, and that's one of only 3 hurricanes to ever make landfall in the U.S. as a Category 5, and we may have our 4th.
It was a landmark.
Yeah.
And this may be the next textbook storm that folks down there are talking about, unfortunately. But the outer cloud bands are just starting to reach parts of Florida. You're looking at live pictures from Palm Beach. At least they have nice weather to get those preparations completed across South Florida. And I know we've been talking about this for days, but a lot of folks are waiting to the last minute for reasons that may be out of their control as well. So hopefully everybody is getting to safety, and it's going to be a race against the clock here in the next few hours. Let's go to the satellite image, and of course Irma just continues to spin. The Bahamas getting pelted with some of the heavier rain. They are going to miss the eye wall. Some of the strongest winds are going to stay away from the Bahamas as that storm, but it's generally going to move through the Florida Straits. And for the most part, we don't think that it's going to interact land, except maybe just sort of brushing some of those barrier islands off of Cuba. Otherwise, it's got a straight shot all the way to South Florida. Current wind speeds as you look down into Cuba, 32 at Gitmo, 28 miles an hour there, and close to 30 on the north side of Cuba. Not much wind beyond that. Some of the gusts really not starting to register yet. Guantanamo Bay at 43 miles per hour so far. So the computer models are starting to really cluster. They're starting to come together, and they're very close to that National Hurricane Center's forecast track right there in the Keys on Sunday morning. This is 8 a.m. and then that storm just continues to move right up the peninsula into parts of northern Florida and Georgia. So we're looking at now our computer model, and as we go forward, you can see the outer rain bands are going to start reaching Florida early in the morning on Saturday. The heaviest of that rain starts to get to the Keys as we get into Saturday evening, but the core of that storm still offshore, and then the rain really starts with the heaviest stuff into Miami as we get into Sunday morning, and we're talking about anywhere between 8 and 12 inches of rain across the area. This is not going to be Harvey, but there could be isolated spots that pick up as much as 20 inches of rain with that storm. So this thing is just a menace, and it doesn't look like anything's going to stop it as it heads towards Florida. Guys?
And all week we've been seeing Floridians trying to flee the storm, taking flights, getting to places like here in Detroit.
But believe it or not, a few of those flights aren't going to Metro Airport. They're actually going to Selfridge. Tim Pamplin shows us how the military is also giving to safety by coming here to Michigan.
Well, there you see yet another aircraft seeking refuge coming into land here at Selfridge Air National Guard Base. These aircraft fleeing Hurricane Irma down south and seeking refuge in our town. Today, Selfridge is expecting 8 of these P-3 submarine hunters to arrive. Here's Base Commander Slocum.
All the bases that are in the way of the hurricane want to move their airplanes and their people out of harm's way. So we right now are setting up to provide a refuge, if you will.
It's a two-way street. The Navy bring up their aircraft and...
Well, as part of this, we have a number of our KC-135 air refueling aircraft that can also carry people and cargo that are on standby waiting to provide airlift for relief efforts for both of the hurricane efforts. So that's exactly what you see behind us out there is your hometown Air Force standing ready to support this effort.
So a true mutual aid effort underway as another one of the P-3. Actually, no, that's a P-8 coming into land here. General Slocum tells me that we are all in this together. That's the scene at Selfridge. Tim Pamplin, Local 4.
Tim. Police in Ohio say a person is behind bars after what they refer to as an active shooter situation at a high school this morning. Officers were called to Columbus-Scioto High School for reports of an active shooter. Investigators are now saying they don't believe that any shots were fired. No one was hurt, but they are not thus far releasing any information about the suspect that they have in custody right now. Back here at home, a man is recovering after being hit while crossing a road in Macomb Township last night.
The man was crossing the street at 21 Mile Road and Sanborn Drive when he was hit by a man driving a truck. The 56-year-old driver and his 54-year-old passenger were both uninjured in that crash. The victim was taken to the hospital where he remains in critical condition this evening. The crash is being investigated.
Searching for justice. The family of a man killed outside of his home on the city's east side asking anyone with any information to come forward.
Kajan Black was gunned down 3 years ago while walking with a friend on Bliss Street near Van Dyke and Outer Drive. Two people tried to rob the men. Black was shot in the head as he and his friend tried to get away. Now his mom wants answers.
This day plays a significant part of my life because today is my birthday. And it's the same day my son was murdered. And if you know anything, please speak up. Because if this was your family, you would want to know what happened to your child.
Please speak up. Crime Stoppers offering a cash reward of up to $2,500 for any information leading to an arrest in Black's murder. You can remain anonymous, and the reward will be paid once the arrest is made.
A traffic stop takes a violent turn, leaving an officer in extreme danger.
So right here, I see the pocket knife, and I tell him to keep his hands up. You see him reach right for his pockets. So I give him the benefit of the doubt, then right there, he went for it again.
New tonight, what caused what should have been a routine traffic stop to turn into chaos? Doc?
Seasonal allergies are high and there's a serious illness on the rise. I'm Dr. Frank McGeorge. Coming up, see what's going around and what you can do right now to reduce your risk.
All right, Frank, but first, an all-out search underway after a pregnant high school teacher didn't show up for the first day of school. The troubling message her parents received right before she vanished. Next.
IT.
New at 6.
Neighbors banding together to try to eliminate a danger nearby, what they did to a blighted home instead of having it torn down.
Plus, the bold health claim one food maker is now being allowed to put on their product. It has to do with peanut allergies. That's new at 6 in Good Health.
Police in Maryland are actively searching tonight for a teacher who did not show up for the first day of school. Laura Wallen was last heard from Monday when she sent a text message to her family. We don't know what that message said, but Wallen's family called police immediately after they got it. Then Tuesday, the history teacher was a no-show at school. Students at the school have flooded social media, hoping to drum up clues, but right now, police have few leads as to where she may be.
Makes you so wonder what that text message said.
What was
clearly,
in it,
and
yes.
if there was someone else.
But that's one of those kind of things they're probably holding back the evidence because only the person involved would know. Yeah.
We'll stay on top of that one for sure. Meantime, in Good Health, seasonal allergies are high and there is a serious illness on the rise.
But it is one that can be prevented with a vaccine. Dr. Frank McGeorge has a look at what's going around.
Ragweed and mold are both big problems right now, causing a lot of allergy symptoms for a lot of people. There's also concern about cases of whooping cough. Here's what's going around where you live. In Wayne County, Beaumont Dearborn ER Dr. Zafar Shamoun says he's been seeing an increase in whooping cough in children. He's urging parents to watch out for a runny nose, fever, and intense coughing. At Beaumont and Canton, Dr. Arsala Bakhtiar reports several cases of adenovirus. Children's Hospital is treating asthma and allergies, and Grosse Pointe Physicians and Surgeons reports ear infections and shingles. Moving to Oakland County, Beaumont Dr. Richard Weiermeller in Rochester Hills says coughs are prevalent from viruses and ragweed allergies. Clarkson Medical Group is seeing strep throat and lots of colds. McLaren Oakland reports upper respiratory infections, and CVS Minute Clinics in Milford and Walled Lake are treating ear infections. Looking at Washtenaw County, St. Joseph Mercy Ann Arbor is seeing an increase in stomach viruses. St. Joseph Mercy Chelsea reports an increase in respiratory problems and in patients exposed to bats. Heading to Monroe County, doctors at ProMedica Monroe Regional are treating seasonal allergies in patients suffering from abdominal pain. Over to Macomb County, McLaren-Macomb Dr. Evan Coyne reports a sharp increase in stomach viruses. Henry Ford Macomb Chesterfield is treating bee stings, and the CVS Minute Clinic in Macomb is seeing sinus infections, upper respiratory infections, and sore throats. Finally, in Livingston County, St. Joseph Mercy Livingston and Brighton report rashes, poison ivy, stomach viruses, and a lot of outdoor injuries. Ascension Medical Center in Howell is treating sinus infections. Pediatricians are bracing themselves right now. We typically see a major increase in illnesses in school-age kids after the first few days of school, with everybody back in class and back in close quarters. Just remind your kids to wash their hands often. Back to you.